Ethan Carter lived a life that seemed to be stuck in neutral. Every morning he woke up to the same routine, an alarm clock buzzing at 5:30, a quick cup of coffee brewed on a second-hand machine, and a long walk to the small auto repair shop where he worked. The shop wasn't much to look at. A faded sign hung above the door with peeling paint that read, "Carter's Auto Repair." It was a place Ethan had inherited from his father, who had passed away years ago, leaving behind a mountain of debts, and a business that barely stayed afloat. Ethan wasn't one to complain, though. He had learned early on that complaining didn't fix anything, only hard work did. And so, day after day, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. His hands were always stained with grease no matter how many times he scrubbed them clean. People often joked that the oil under his fingernails was permanent, like a tattoo marking him as a mechanic for life. But Ethan didn't mind. He loved cars, from the rumble of an engine to the satisfaction of hearing it purr smoothly after a repair. There was something magical about what he did. The problem wasn't the work itself, it was everything else around it. The bills kept piling up faster than he could pay them off. Rent for the shop space was due every month, and his landlord, Mr. Grayson, never hesitated to remind him if even a single payment was late. Then there were the utility bills, parts orders, and taxes, all things that felt impossible to manage on the meager income he earned. Most customers came in with old, beat-up cars that needed cheap fixes, not high-paying jobs. Tips were rare, and when they did come, they were usually just loose change dropped into a jar by people who couldn't afford much more. Despite all this, Ethan held on to hope. He dreamed of opening his own garage someday, a bigger, better place where he could hire a team of mechanics and offer top-notch services. Maybe he'd even expand into custom builds or restoration projects. That dream felt far away now, but he refused to let go of it completely. Dreams were free after all, and they gave him something to strive for when life felt overwhelming. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, as Ethan bent over the hood of a rusty sedan, trying to figure out why its engine kept sputtering, the bell above, the shop door jingled softly. Startled, he glanced up and saw someone walking in. It wasn't unusual for customers to drop by unannounced, but this visitor stood out immediately. She was dressed sharply in a navy blue suit with polished heels that clicked against the concrete floor. Her blonde hair was pulled back neatly, and she carried herself with an air of confidence that made Ethan feel slightly out of place in his worn coveralls. "Can I help you?" Ethan asked, wiping his hands on a rag before stepping forward. The woman smiled warmly. "I hope so. My car broke down a few blocks away and I need someone to take a look at it. I'm Claire Bennett," she added, extending her hand. Ethan shook it gently, noticing how smooth and soft her palm felt compared to his rough, calloused fingers. "Ethan Carter," he replied. "What kind of car are we talking about?" Claire gestured toward the entrance where a sleek black luxury sports car sat parked outside. Even through the rain-soaked window, Ethan could see how expensive it was. The logo on the hood told him it was a model he'd only seen in magazines. A car worth more than he made in several years combined. He swallowed hard, suddenly feeling nervous. Working on such a high-end vehicle would require precision and care, qualities he prided himself on but also knew weren't always appreciated by others. "I was on my way to an important meeting when the engine started making strange noises," Claire explained. "Then it just died completely. Do you think you can fix it?" Ethan nodded, trying to appear calm despite the butterflies fluttering in his stomach. "Let me grab my tools and take a closer look." As he stepped outside and approached the car, he couldn't help but admire its design. The lines were sleek, the finish flawless. It was the kind of car that turned heads wherever it went. But Ethan pushed those thoughts aside. Right now, his job was to focus on what was wrong with it, not how beautiful it was. He popped the hood and leaned in, scanning the engine compartment carefully. At first glance, nothing seemed obviously broken, which worried him. Sometimes the most challenging problems were the ones you couldn't see right away. Still, he trusted his instincts. Over the years, he'd developed a knack for diagnosing issues quickly, and he relied on that skill now. After a few minutes of inspection, Ethan turned to Claire. "It looks like there might be a problem with the fuel injection system. Need to run some tests to confirm, but I should be able to fix it. Claire nodded, relief washing over her face. Thank you. I really appreciate this. I can't afford to miss this meeting. It's too important. Ethan smiled reassuringly. Don't worry. I'll do my best to get you back on the road as soon as possible. As he worked, Claire lingered nearby, watching curiously. She asked questions about the car's mechanics, clearly fascinated by the process. Ethan found himself explaining things in simple terms, breaking down complex concepts so she could understand. It wasn't often that someone showed genuine interest in what he did, and he enjoyed sharing his knowledge. You're really good at this, Claire remarked at one point. Have you always been a mechanic? Pretty much, Ethan replied with a chuckle. My dad taught me everything I know. This shop used to be his before he passed away. Claire's expression softened. That must have been tough. It was, Ethan admitted. But it's also what keeps me going. I want to make him proud. Their conversation flowed naturally, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he was talking to someone who truly listened. Claire didn't treat him like just a mechanic. Instead, she treated him like a person, an individual with dreams and struggles of his own. By the time Ethan finished examining the car, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. He wiped his hands again and faced Claire. I'll need a couple of hours to fix it properly, is that okay? Claire nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. As she settled into a chair in the corner of the shop, Ethan returned to his task, determined to prove that he was capable of handling anything, even a CEO's luxury car. Ethan got to work immediately, his focus sharp as he began diagnosing the exact issue with Claire's luxury car. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the air damp and cool. Inside the shop, the only sounds were the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the occasional clink of tools as Ethan moved around the engine bay. He worked methodically, checking each component carefully. This wasn't just any car. It was a machine worth more than most people made in years, and Ethan knew he couldn't afford to make a mistake. Claire sat quietly nearby, occasionally glancing at her phone but mostly observing Ethan as he worked. She seemed genuinely interested in what he was doing, which surprised him. Most customers didn't care about the details. They just wanted their cars fixed and left it at that. But Claire asked questions, wanting to understand how everything fit together. So what exactly is wrong with it? She asked after a while, leaning forward slightly. Ethan paused to explain. From what I can tell, there's a problem with the fuel injectors. They're not delivering the right amount of fuel to the engine, which is why it stalled. It's a delicate system, so I need to clean them out and recalibrate them. If that doesn't work, we might need to replace one or two. Claire nodded thoughtfully. That sounds complicated. It can be, Ethan admitted, smiling a little. But it's also kind of fun. Cars are like puzzles. You have to figure out what's causing the problem and then fix it step by step. Claire tilted her head, studying him for a moment. You really love this, don't you? Ethan chuckled softly. Yeah, I guess I do. Even when it gets tough, I still enjoy it. There's something satisfying about seeing a car come back to life after it's been broken. As they talked, Ethan continued working. He removed the fuel injectors one by one, inspecting them closely. Sure enough, he found traces of dirt and debris clogging the tiny openings. It wasn't uncommon for high-end cars to develop these kinds of issues if they weren't maintained regularly. He cleaned each injector thoroughly before moving on to recalibrating them. The process took time, but Ethan worked patiently, knowing that rushing could lead to mistakes. While he worked there, conversation shifted to other topics. Claire mentioned her company, a tech startup that specialized in developing software for businesses. She explained how she'd started it from scratch after losing nearly everything in a bad investment years ago. It was rough at first, she said, her voice tinged with both frustration and pride. I had to start over completely, but I refused to give up. Now here we are. Ethan listened intently, nodding along. That's impressive. Starting your own business takes guts. Claire smiled faintly. It does, but it's also exhausting. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. Still, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Their shared experiences created an unexpected connection between them. Ethan realized that despite their vastly different lives, they weren't so different after all. Both had faced setbacks and challenges, yet neither had given up. They understood the weight of responsibility and the relentless drive to keep moving forward, no matter how hard things got. After several hours of steady work, Ethan finally finished repairing the car. He wiped his hands once more and turned to Claire. "It's ready. Let me take it for a quick test drive to make sure everything's running smoothly." Claire stood up, brushing imaginary dust off her suit. "Of course. Thank you for taking such good care of it." Ethan grabbed the keys and motioned for Claire to follow him outside. As they approached the car, he opened the driver's side door and slid behind the wheel. Claire hesitated for a moment before climbing into the passenger seat. The interior smelled faintly of leather and polish, a stark contrast to the worn seats of Ethan's old truck. "Ready?" Ethan asked, glancing at her briefly. "Ready?" Claire replied, fastening her seatbelt. He turned the key, and the engine roared to life. It was a deep, powerful sound that sent a shiver of satisfaction through Ethan. He eased the car out of the driveway and onto the quiet street. The ride was smooth, almost silent, except for the hum of the tires against the pavement. Ethan drove cautiously at first, testing the acceleration and braking systems. Everything felt perfect, better than before even. "This is amazing," Claire said, breaking the silence. "You really know what you're doing." Ethereal modesty crept into Ethan's tone. "Just doing my job." They drove through the city streets, passing rows of buildings and bustling sidewalks. Claire pointed out landmarks along the way, sharing stories about places she frequented during her busy schedule. Ethan listened, marveling at how effortlessly she navigated her world. To him, it seemed like a completely different universe, one filled with boardrooms, presentations, and endless meetings. Yet, he couldn't deny that he admired her determination and success. As they rounded a corner, Claire turned to him. "You know, I've been thinking. You're incredibly talented, Ethan. Have you ever considered doing something bigger with your skills?" Ethan frowned slightly, unsure of what she meant. "Bigger? Like what?" "I don't know," Claire said, shrugging lightly. "Maybe expanding your business or partnering with someone who could help you grow. You clearly have the talent and passion. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity." The idea caught Ethan off guard. He'd dreamed of owning his own garage for years, but he'd always assumed it was out of reach. Hearing Claire suggest it felt strange, almost surreal. Was she serious, or was she just being polite? Before he could respond, they arrived back at the shop. Ethan parked the car and turned off the engine. "Well, here we are," he said, stepping out of the vehicle. Claire joined him, looking thoughtful. "Thank you again, Ethan. You saved me today." "It was nothing," Ethan replied, waving away her gratitude. "Just glad I could help." Claire hesitated for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. She handed Ethan a stack of bills, far more than he expected for the repair. "This is for your time and effort," she said firmly when he tried to protest, "and for inspiring me with your dedication." Ethan accepted the money reluctantly, feeling a mix of gratitude and unease. He wasn't used to receiving such generosity, especially from someone like Claire. As she walked back to the car, she turned and gave him a small smile. "Take care, Ethan, and think about what I said." With that, she climbed into the driver's seat and drove away, leaving Ethan standing in the driveway, lost in thought. Her words lingered in his mind long after she was gone. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to entertain the possibility that maybe, just maybe, his dreams weren't as impossible as they seemed. The next few days passed in a blur for Ethan. He went about his usual routine at the shop, fixing cars and dealing with customers, but his mind kept drifting back to Claire's words during their test drive. She had planted a seed of possibility in his thoughts, a notion that maybe he could do more than just scrape by running a small repair shop. But every time he let himself imagine it, doubt crept in. Who was he kidding? Expanding his business or partnering with someone like Claire seemed as far-fetched as winning the lottery. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Claire's confidence in him, and her unexpected generosity, had stirred something deep inside. It wasn't just about the money she'd given him. It was the way she'd spoken to him, as if she truly believed in his abilities. No one had ever looked at him like that before, not since his father passed away. The memory of his dad working tirelessly in this very shop came flooding back, reminding him why he stayed in the business in the first place. His father always said, "If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life." And Ethan did love it. But loving something didn't pay the bills. On Friday morning, Ethan arrived at the shop early as usual. The streets were quiet, and the air carried a crisp chill that hinted at autumn approaching. As he unlocked the door and flipped on the lights, he noticed an envelope taped to the glass. Curious, he pulled it off and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Ethan, I meant what I said. Let's talk soon. Call me when you're ready. Claire." Below her name was a phone number written neatly in ink. Ethan stared at the note, his heart pounding. This wasn't just a casual offer. It felt personal, intentional. Claire had gone out of her way to reach out to him again, and that realization made him both nervous and hopeful. For the rest of the day, Ethan wrestled with whether or not to call her. On one hand, he didn't want to seem ungrateful or overly eager. On the other hand, he knew opportunities like this didn't come around often, not for people like him. By the time evening rolled around, he decided to take the leap. What did he have to lose? He dialed the number slowly, his fingers trembling slightly. The phone rang twice before Claire answered. "Hello?" Her voice was warm and professional, exactly as he remembered. "Hi, Ms. Bennett," Ethan stammered, suddenly feeling awkward. "It's Ethan Carter. I got your note." "Oh, Ethan. Thank you for calling. How are you?" "I'm good, thanks. Listen, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for the tip, for the kind words. I really appreciate it." "You don't need to thank me," Claire replied lightly. "You earned every bit of it. But I'm glad you called because I'd like to meet up. Are you free tomorrow?" Ethan hesitated. Meeting with Claire outside of the shop felt strange, almost surreal. "Sure, I guess. Where should we meet?" "There's a cafe downtown. Quiet, cozy, perfect for talking. Does 10 o'clock work for you?" "10 works," Ethan said, trying to sound confident despite the nerves bubbling inside him. "Great. See you then." When they hung up, Ethan leaned against the counter, staring blankly at the wall. Tomorrow would be interesting, to say the least. The following morning, Ethan dressed carefully, choosing a pair of clean jeans and a button-up shirt instead of his usual grease-stained coveralls. He even shaved, something he hadn't bothered doing in days. When he walked into the cafe, he spotted Claire immediately. She was seated at a corner table, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. She looked up as he approached, smiling warmly. "Ethan, right on time," she said, gesturing for him to sit down. "Thanks for meeting me here," Ethan replied, sliding into the chair across from her. He glanced around nervously, feeling out of place among the polished tables and soft jazz music playing in the background. "No problem. I thought this would be a nice change of scenery. Coffee?" "Yes, please." Ethan nodded gratefully as she signaled for the waitress. As they waited for their drinks, Claire leaned forward slightly. "So, how have you been?" "Busy as always," Ethan admitted. "But I've been thinking about what you said the other day." Claire raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And?" Well, I'm not sure where to start. I mean, expanding. My business sounds great in theory, but I don't even know if I'm ready for something like that." "That's fair," Claire said gently. "Big changes can feel overwhelming. But let me ask you this. What's holding you back?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Money, mostly. Starting anything new costs a lot, and I'm barely keeping this place afloat as it is. Plus, I don't have connections like you do. I wouldn't even know where to begin." Claire nodded thoughtfully. "Those are valid concerns, but they're not insurmountable. Here's the thing. I believe in surrounding myself with talented people who share my vision. And from what I've seen, you have incredible potential, Ethan. You understand cars better than anyone I've met, and you clearly care about your work. That's rare. Her words hit him like a punch to the chest. Rare? No one had ever described him that way before. He swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. What I'm proposing, Claire continued, is a partnership. My company is growing, and we're looking to expand our operations, including vehicle maintenance and logistics. We need someone reliable to oversee that side of things. Someone like you. Ethan blinked, stunned. Wait, you want me to work for your company? Not exactly, Claire clarified. I want you to lead a new division dedicated to fleet management. You'd handle everything from repairs to scheduling to hiring staff. Think of it as building your dream garage, but within my company. We'd provide the resources and support you need to make it happen. The idea was staggering. A chance to run his own operation without the financial burden he'd always feared? It sounded too good to be true. But why me? Ethan asked, finally his voice tinged with disbelief. There must be plenty of other mechanics out there who are more qualified. Claire smiled knowingly. Because qualifications aren't everything. Yes, you're skilled, but more importantly, you're passionate and honest. Those qualities matter more than you think. Besides, I trust you. Isn't that worth something? Ethan sat silently, letting her words sink in. Trust. It was a word he hadn't heard in a long time, not in the context of business anyway. Most people saw him as just another mechanic, someone to fix their problems and move on. But Claire saw something else entirely. All right, he said slowly, surprising even himself. Let's talk details. Claire grinned, clearly pleased. That's the spirit. Over the next hour, they discussed the specifics of the proposal. Claire explained how the division would operate, the budget available, and the timeline for getting started. She answered all of Ethan's questions patiently, addressing his concerns about responsibilities and expectations. By the end of the conversation, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was a huge step, one that could change his life, forever, but he was willing to try. As they left the cafe together, Claire shook his hand firmly. Welcome aboard, Ethan. I think you're going to do amazing things. Ethan nodded, still processing everything. Thank you, Claire, for believing in me. Belief only gets you so far, she said with a wink. Now it's up to you to prove me right. Walking back to his shop, Ethan couldn't help but smile. For the first time in years, he felt like he was standing on the edge of something big. All he had to do was take the first step. Ethan's first day at Claire's company felt like stepping into a completely different world. The office building was sleek and modern, with glass walls, polished floors, and the faint hum of computers filling the air. Employees dressed in professional attire bustled about, carrying laptops and folders as they moved from meeting to meeting. Ethan, wearing his usual jeans and a clean button-up shirt, stuck out like a sore thumb. He couldn't help but feel self-conscious as he walked through the lobby, clutching a notebook and trying to look confident. Claire greeted him warmly when he arrived, introducing him to several members of her team. Everyone, this is Ethan. Carter, she said with a smile. He'll be heading up our new fleet management division. I trust you'll all support him as he gets settled. The group nodded politely, though Ethan noticed a few skeptical glances. He understood their hesitation. It wasn't every day that someone from a small auto repair shop joined a high-powered tech company. But Claire's faith in him gave him the courage to push past his doubts. Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into learning the ropes. Claire had assigned him a small office near hers where he spent hours poring over spreadsheets, budgets, and operational plans. At first, it felt overwhelming. Managing teams and overseeing logistics was far removed from turning wrenches and fixing engines. There were days when Ethan questioned whether he'd made the right decision, wondering if he'd bitten off more than he could chew. But Claire never let him give up. She checked in regularly, offering guidance whenever he needed. You're doing great, she assured him during one of their meetings. It's okay to feel out of your depth. That's how growth happens. Just keep going. Her encouragement kept Ethan motivated, even when things got tough. Slowly but surely, he began to adapt. He learned how to communicate effectively with employees, delegate tasks, and make decisions that aligned with the company's goals. What surprised him most was how much he enjoyed leading a team. Watching others succeed under his direction filled him with a sense of pride he hadn't experienced before. One of Ethan's biggest challenges came when he had to hire mechanics for the new division. He wanted to build a team he could trust, people who shared his passion for cars and his dedication to quality work. But finding the right candidates proved difficult. Many applicants were skilled but lacked enthusiasm, while others seemed eager, but inexperienced. Frustrated, Ethan turned to Claire for advice. "Trust your instincts," she told him. "If someone feels like a good fit, go with it. You know what you're looking for better than anyone else." Taking her words to heart, Ethan revisited his list of potential hires. One name stood out: Maria Lopez, a young mechanic with years of experience working on luxury vehicles. During her interview, she spoke passionately about her love for automotive, engineering, and her desire to grow in the industry. Something about her energy reminded Ethan of himself when he was younger, hungry, determined, and unafraid to dream big. He hired Maria, along with 2 other promising candidates, and immediately put them to work setting up the division's operations. Together, they transformed an empty warehouse into a state-of-the-art facility, equipped with the latest tools and technology. Ethan supervised everything closely, ensuring that every detail met his standards. It was exhausting, but also exhilarating. For the first time in years, he felt like he was truly building something meaningful. As the division began to take shape, Ethan faced another hurdle, proving its value to the rest of the company. Some departments were skeptical about entrusting vehicle maintenance to a newcomer, especially one without a corporate background. To win them over, Ethan focused on delivering results. Under his leadership, the team implemented cost-saving measures that reduced maintenance expenses by nearly 20% within the first 6 months. They also streamlined scheduling processes, ensuring that company vehicles were always ready when needed. Word of their success spread quickly, earning Ethan praise from executives and colleagues alike. Even those who had initially doubted him started coming around, impressed by his ability to deliver under pressure. Claire, too, was thrilled with his progress. "I knew you could do it," she said during one of their check-ins. "You've exceeded my expectations." Despite his growing confidence, Ethan still struggled with imposter syndrome. He often found himself comparing his journey to Claire's, marveling at how effortlessly she seemed to navigate the corporate world. While he admired her poise and intelligence, he sometimes wondered if he'd ever measure up. Claire noticed his insecurities and pulled him aside one afternoon. "You don't have to be like me," she said firmly. "In fact, I want you to stay exactly who you are. Your strength lies in your authenticity. Don't lose that." Her words struck a chord with Ethan. He realized that trying to emulate Claire or anyone else would only hold him back. Instead, he resolved to embrace his unique qualities, using them to carve out his own path. By the end of his first year with the company, Ethan's division had become indispensable. Not only did it save money, but it also improved efficiency across the board. Employees appreciated having reliable transportation for business trips, and clients were impressed by the professionalism of the service. Ethan's hard work paid off in ways he'd never imagined, earning him promotions and bonuses that allowed him to finally pay off his debts. But the greatest reward wasn't financial, it was personal. Ethan had proven to himself that he was capable of more than he'd ever dreamed. With Claire's support and his own determination, he'd risen above the struggles that once defined him, and though the road ahead would undoubtedly bring new challenges, he felt ready to face them head on. Ethan's second year at the company brought new challenges, but it also marked a turning point in his life. The fleet management division had grown significantly, expanding its services to include not only vehicle maintenance, but also custom modifications and emergency roadside assistance. What started as a small operation now employed over 20 people, many of whom Ethan had personally trained and mentored. Despite the growth, he remained hands-on, often rolling up his sleeves to help with repairs or troubleshoot complex issues. His team admired him for it. They knew their boss wasn't afraid to get dirty when necessary. One morning, Ethan arrived at the office early, eager to review the latest performance reports. He'd been working tirelessly to improve efficiency and reduce costs further, and the numbers showed promising results. But as he flipped through the pages, one section caught his attention: customer feedback. While most comments praised the division's work, a few complaints stood out. Some clients felt that response times were too slow during peak hours, while others mentioned inconsistencies in service quality. Frustrated but determined, Ethan decided to address these concerns head-on. He called a meeting with his team later that day, laying out the issues clearly. "We've come so far," he said, pacing in front of the group. "But we can't afford to slip up now. Our reputation depends on delivering top-notch service, every single time." Maria raised her hand hesitantly. "Ethan, I think part of the problem is staffing. We're stretched thin during busy periods, and it's hard to keep up with demand." "She's right," added James, another mechanic. "We could use more hands on deck." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, let's put together a plan to hire additional staff, but we also need better scheduling. Maybe we can stagger shifts to cover peak hours without overwhelming anyone." The team brainstormed ideas, eventually coming up with a strategy to improve operations. Over the next few weeks, Ethan implemented their suggestions, hiring 3 new employees and reorganizing the schedule to ensure smoother workflows. Slowly but surely, the complaints began to dwindle, replaced by glowing reviews from satisfied customers. Around the same time, Claire approached Ethan with an exciting opportunity. Her company was planning to launch a new initiative focused on sustainability, including transitioning part of its fleet to electric vehicles. She wanted Ethan's division to lead the effort, overseeing everything from vehicle procurement to charging infrastructure installation. "This is huge," Ethan said, sitting across from Claire in her office. "Are you sure you want us handling something this big?" "I wouldn't have asked if I didn't believe in you," Claire replied with a smile. "Besides, who better to manage this than someone who understands cars inside and out?" Ethan couldn't argue with that. Still, the idea of working with electric vehicles felt daunting. He'd spent years mastering traditional engines, but EV technology was relatively new to him. Determined not to let Claire down, he dove into research, reading articles, watching tutorials, and attending workshops. He even reached out to manufacturers for guidance, building relationships that would prove invaluable down the line. With Claire's support, Ethan assembled a small team dedicated to the project. They worked closely with engineers and designers, learning how to adapt existing processes for electric vehicles. It was a steep learning curve, but Ethan thrived under the pressure. Every breakthrough, whether it was installing a charging station or troubleshooting an EV battery issue, felt like a victory. As the months passed, the sustainability initiative gained momentum. The company successfully transitioned a portion of its fleet to electric vehicles, reducing its carbon footprint significantly. Clients praised the move, and media coverage highlighted the company's commitment to environmental responsibility. Ethan's division played a key role in making it happen, earning widespread recognition within the organization. Despite his success, Ethan never lost sight of where he came from. On weekends, he still visited his old repair shop, helping out whenever Mr. Grayson, the landlord, needed assistance. Though the shop no longer belonged to him, it held sentimental value, reminding him of his father and the lessons he'd learned growing up. Occasionally, he brought Maria or other team members along, introducing them to the place where it all began. "You really built this whole thing from scratch?" Maria asked one afternoon, looking around the modest space. "Not exactly," Ethan replied with a chuckle. "My dad did most of the heavy lifting. I just kept it going after he passed away." Maria shook her head in awe. "You've come such a long way since then. It's inspiring." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. Inspiring? He'd never thought of himself that way before. But as he looked back on his journey, from struggling mechanic to division leader, He realized how much he'd grown. And it wasn't just about career advancement, it was about resilience, determination, and the willingness to take risks. Claire noticed the change in Ethan, too. During one of their regular check-ins, she remarked, "You seem different lately. More confident." "I guess I am," Ethan admitted. "This job has taught me a lot, not just about managing a business, but about myself. I used to doubt whether I belonged here, but now I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Claire grinned. "Good, because there's still so much more you can achieve." Her words stayed with Ethan long after their conversation ended. For the first time in his life, he allowed himself to dream bigger, to imagine possibilities beyond what he'd once thought possible. Maybe one day he'd own his own garage again, but this time, it would be on his terms. With the skills and experience he'd gained, anything seemed achievable. 2 years had passed since Ethan first stepped into Claire's office, unsure of what the future held. Now, as he stood outside a brand new facility on the outskirts of the city, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The building was modern and spacious, with large garage doors, gleaming equipment, and a sign above the entrance that read Carter Fleet Solutions. It wasn't just any garage, it was his dream come true. The journey to this moment hadn't been easy. There were sleepless nights, moments of doubt and challenges that tested his resolve. But through it all, Ethan had persevered, driven by the belief that hard work and determination could overcome anything. And now, here he was, standing at the threshold of something he'd once thought impossible. Claire joined him outside, her expression warm and proud. "You've done it, Ethan," she said, glancing at the sign. "This is your place now." Ethan nodded, still processing the reality of it. "It doesn't feel real," he admitted. "I keep waiting for someone to tell me I'm dreaming." "You're not dreaming," Claire assured him. "This is the result of everything you've worked for. You earned this." The new facility was the culmination of a partnership between Ethan and Claire's company. After proving himself time and again, Ethan had approached Claire with a proposal to co-own the business, combining resources and expertise to create something truly unique. To his surprise, she agreed without hesitation. Together, they secured funding, designed the layout, and hired a talented team to run operations. Now Carter Fleet Solutions served not only Claire's company, but also external clients, offering everything from routine maintenance to cutting-edge EV upgrades. Walking inside, Ethan felt a surge of pride. The space buzzed with activity as mechanics moved between vehicles, performing inspections, repairs, and customizations. Maria, who had risen to become his second-in-command, greeted him with a grin. "Looks like we're officially open for business," she said. "It does," Ethan replied, smiling back. "Thanks to everyone's hard work." Later that afternoon, Ethan hosted an informal gathering to celebrate the grand opening. Employees, friends, and even a few old customers from his original shop came to show their support. Claire gave a short speech, praising Ethan's leadership and vision. "When I met Ethan 2 years ago, I saw potential in him," she said, raising a glass. "But I never imagined how far he'd go. This facility is proof that dreams can become reality, if you're willing to fight for them." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. He stepped forward to say a few words, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside him. "I couldn't have done this alone," he began. "To my team, thank you for believing in me and working so hard to make this happen. To Claire, thank you for taking a chance on me when no one else would. And to my dad, wherever you are, I hope I've made you proud." As the celebration continued, Ethan found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed. Gone were the days of struggling to pay rent or worrying about eviction notices. In their place was stability, purpose, and a sense of fulfillment he'd never known before. But more than that, he'd gained something even more valuable: confidence. Confidence in his abilities, his decisions, and his capacity to grow. Over the following months, Carter Fleet Solutions thrived. Business poured in from companies eager to partner with a reliable, innovative provider. Ethan expanded the team, investing in training programs to ensure everyone stayed ahead of industry trends. He also introduced community outreach initiatives, offering free workshops to teach local youth about automotive repair and sustainability. Watching young people light up with excitement over engines reminded him of his own passion for cars and reinforced his commitment to giving back. Despite his success, Ethan remained humble. He visited his old shop regularly, sharing stories with Mr. Grayson and occasionally lending a hand. The connection to his roots grounded him, reminding him of the importance of staying true to himself. Even as his responsibilities grew, he made time for the people and places that mattered most. One evening, as Ethan sat in his office reviewing plans for future projects, Claire stopped by unexpectedly. She leaned against the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Mind if I join you?" "Of course not," Ethan said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to check in," Claire replied, handing him a cup. "How are things going?" "Better than I ever imagined," Ethan admitted. "Every day feels like a new opportunity. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." Claire smiled knowingly. "Believe it. You've built something incredible, Ethan, and I have no doubt you'll keep pushing boundaries." Her words resonated deeply with Ethan. He realized that while he'd achieved so much, there was still room to grow, to innovate, to inspire, to leave a lasting impact. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but he was ready to face whatever came his way. As the sun set outside, casting golden light through the windows, Ethan took a moment to soak it all in. From fixing luxury cars in a rundown shop to leading a state-of-the-art facility, his journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. But it wasn't just about where he'd ended up. It was about the lessons he'd learned along the way. Hardship had taught him resilience. Failure had shown him the value of persistence, and kindness from people like Claire had reminded him that sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change your life forever. And so, Ethan Carter's story became a testament to the power of dreams, determination, and trust. It was a reminder that no matter how tough life gets, there's always hope, and always a chance to build something better.